How aware are you for seasons and cycles to be changing and shifting in your life? Today we talk all about medical marijuana and we talk about things that are shifting in my world. Welcome to the R.Y.S.E Movement podcast, a place where men just like you learn to raise your standards everywhere. Welcome to another episode of the R.Y.S.E Movement podcast. I am Dave, and in this one, like I said in the intro, things are going to be a little bit different compared to what we usually do. So in this one, we're talking all about seasons and cycles and when they are changing, and if you are aware enough of when they actually happen. Also, we're going to talk about medicinal marijuana. So I don't know where exactly I want to start. I don't know when this one is going to come out. I don't know if I'm going to record it and post it straight away, or if I'm going to wait until I'm further through the transformation and transition that I'm going through. So with the R.Y.S.E movement, we stand for raising your standards everywhere. That's what it is. This is a movement and I want it to be a beacon for men worldwide to be able to see in the fog of night when it's darkest before the dawn, and they can have somewhere to be able to navigate, to be able to help themselves out of a shitty situation. To be able to know that there's brothers around the world that have got their back. And this is what the movement is all about. With raising your standards everywhere, we talk heavily about mental health, but we mainly talk about the straight and narrow path, aiming at your North Star, purpose, meaning, fulfillment, success, all of these sorts of things. And whilst that is an extremely important part of a man's life, we're going to shift gears a little bit because I'm shifting gears a little bit. I want to make sure that I stand by three things with you guys: vulnerability, transparency, and authenticity. I can't be authentic and vulnerable and transparent separate from one another. I have to do all three one and the same. Because to me, to be authentic means to be vulnerable. To be transparent means to be vulnerable. And each of those relate to the other ones as well. So like I said, I'm going through a transition. The transition that I'm noticing comes back to, I've said it on the podcast before, but I'm not sure if you guys remember it. It's the feather, brick, and truck analogy. So before we get into anything to do with what's going on with me, I'm going to frame it first. Life happens in cycles. It happens in what seems to be circles, but it's not a circle. It's actually a spiral. You're always constantly ascending. When things come back around full circle, they may appear that there's come back around full circle. There'll be themes, there'll be attributes, there'll be signs that you've come full circle, that something's come back around again. However, throughout the time that it's taken in between the last time it came around and the current time that it's come around, you have a different perspective. You're above it. Whether you feel like life has been chaos and you're going through a divorce, business is breaking up, or whatever's going on that has been tough for you, whatever obstacles you've had to overcome, you're still moving forwards. You're still growing, you're still learning, you're still becoming the man that you could become. So when you come around full circle again, you've got this top-down approach to be able to look at it with different perspective. It allows you the opportunity to create solutions. I say this all the time. My favorite Einstein quote: "You can't solve a problem from the same level of mind that created it." So when you have this thing that comes back around full circle and you have this top-down approach to be able to look at it from a more objective standpoint, you're zoomed out a little bit more and you're able to witness it through a different lens. You have the ability to see anything that you want to see from that perspective. So the analogy that I want to use here, because not everyone is aware of when they've come full circle and when they're actually ascending up the spiral and they've got a chance for something that's come around full circle again to be able to do something with it. The analogy is the feather, brick, and truck. So are you aware to get the little tickle of intuition that says, hey, you need to be aware of this? Intuition's always a quieter voice. Unless you cultivate it, unless you manage it and nurture it, it starts quiet. That loud voice that's in your head, that's ego. When ego is saying and trying to convince you of doing something, it'll be something that creates a enhancement of self. It creates It creates things that make you matter more, make you want to be the center of attention. It creates things in separation from everything else. It's me versus this thing over here. Look how good it would be for me to experience this thing. Whereas intuition often comes from a place of service. Service for self and service for other. Intuition is a whisper, and it starts off very quiet. That little whisper, that tickle from the universe, that tickle from your intuition, it's a beautiful thing when you catch it. I have an amazing, amazing relationship with my intuition and with my unconscious. I've done a lot of work over the last 10 odd years when it comes to therapy, coaching, counseling, programs, books, mentorships, plant medicine ceremonies, meditation, breath work, like all the modalities. I have a very good relationship with my unconscious and with my intuition. So I ask for my intuition to show me magical signs every single day, and I get a little nod from it every single day because I like to bring majesty. I like to bring some magic back to my life. So I want to cultivate a really, really strong relationship with my intuition. It's actually one of the later chapters inside of this great book here, Think and Grow Rich. After the mastermind principle in here, we've got the chapter of sex transmutation. God, I can't wait to get into that with the 8 weeks to men group that we've got going on. But after that, we've got the subconscious mind, the brain, and then the sixth sense, intuition. If you can be aware of those little tickles from the universe or intuition, call it whatever you want to call it from God, source, infinite intelligence. But if you can be aware of those little tickles, you're going to be able to move through that spiral faster, ascend into higher levels of consciousness, high levels of experience, and you'll get rewarded for it. However, if you're like me and you don't pay attention to the little voice that's saying, hey, maybe don't be a dickhead, don't do this, focus on this, be aware of this, all these sorts of things, maybe you get run over by, or maybe you get a brick thrown through your window. I've had many bricks thrown through my window. That's where you ignore the little tickle. You ignore the signs, the symbols, the metaphors, the things that are going on around you, and you're like, that's not real. That's not a thing. I don't have to worry about that. I'm going to be a skeptic on it. It's nonsense. It's, superstition, whatever it is. Intuition is real. And if you ignore it for long enough, things will happen and manifest in your world to create chaos and calamity to make you aware of that thing. So when the brick gets thrown through your window, you better be aware because that brick has a message attached to it. And that message is, hey, dickhead, pay fucking attention. So I don't know what it's like for you guys when a brick gets thrown through your window. But for me, it's very disruptive. It's chaos, it's calamity, it's pain. It can be traumatic. It can be very confusing. It can make you feel pretty stuck. All of a sudden, you're like stagnant. I often talk about momentum, building momentum so that you can continually move forward. Like this last week in the 8 weeks to a new man group, we have just studied persistence and the chapter of decision. So decision is coming to prompt decisions really, really quickly. I say this with my kids. I've set up an affirmation in their mind so that they can have this constantly and they hear my voice when it comes to making a decision. And I say a quick decision is a good decision. So that way, even if you make a decision and it turns you into the wrong way, you're still moving. You can pivot from there and go and course correct. Whereas if you're stagnant and you're not making decisions and you're procrastinating, it's the opposite of making decisions. Procrastination is that shadow saboteur energy that I spoke about a couple of weeks ago. So when it comes to that brick getting thrown through, that is causing stagnation, it's making you feel stuck, and it's making your momentum disappear. And it can be really painful to go through. Some of the bricks that have been thrown through my windows, not so much in the last few years. One of them was when I finished working up with the other men's company that I was working with. I ignored my intuition on that. I had so many gut feelings, so many little voices of intuition saying, hey, you need to be aware of this. There's something coming up. Something's not right with the scenario. Something's not right with the situation. Play your cards very close to your chest and set some things up. And I ignored it for so long until that's where I started personal training again, because I was like, all right, something's amiss. There's about to be a brick, because I kind of caught the brick as it was hitting my window. It still caused a bit of chaos and calamity and made me stagnate a little bit. However, I was still able to pivot. I was still able to continue momentum. And so when that potential brick came through, I did my best to be able to pick up the pieces and continue moving forward so I wasn't stagnant. That was really hard to deal with. times before that is COVID. We all had that. We all had that brick get thrown through our window where we recognized just how free we aren't, just how polarizing things can be. I'm not going to get into that because I can go down and start a very heated debate about that. However, like, you know exactly what's going on. You know how fucked up it is. And that was a big brick for all of us. If you're not aware of the brick and you're not paying attention to life when it gets you down and you're noticing how stuck you are and procrastinating and all these sorts of things, and you still don't pay attention, that's where you're going to get run over by the truck. When you get run over by the truck, that is paradigm ending. All of a sudden, you're at rock bottom. Rock bottom is a really hard place to get off of. It's hard to build momentum from zero. And when you get run over by the truck, you're in hospital, essentially. Whether it might not be a physical hospital, but it will be a mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual hospital where all of a sudden you have nothing and you're stuck and you're stagnant and you're starting from absolute scratch and you have to rebuild, you have to heal, you have to integrate, you have to go through, trauma counseling or whatever it is. I've seen so many people get run over by a truck in my life, especially as being a coach, and it's so hard to watch this happen. Because from the outside, a lot of the time, you'll have this insight to people and say, hey man, you need to be aware of this thing. Something's going on, you're not paying attention, and like, I'm really worried about you, please do something about it. And then they don't, and then all of a sudden they end up fucked. So, feather, brick and truck. That's what we're talking about here. When it comes to the seasons and the cycles ending and ascending up the spiral, how aware are you before the seasons change? So right now I'm recording this on the 1st of September. It's the first day of spring. Seasons have changed. And it's very metaphorical and symbolic for what I'm about to go through. Like I said before, I'm extremely in tune with my intuition. I'm extremely in tune for little nods and hints and symbols and metaphors and stuff like that, and synchronicities from the world around me, also my intuition, my inner world, to say when things are changing. Because something will give you a little tap on the shoulder, something will happen, and it will make you pay attention. A little backstory here. So this one here, I don't know how well it's going to be able to pick up when I zoom in for editing. Anyway, that's a future Dave's problem. This picture here, this is Anubis. Well, this tattoo here is Anubis. And Anubis, he is the god of the underworld. And he's also a metaphor for my unconscious mind. It was about 18 months ago. Actually longer than that now, damn. God, time flies. I just realized when I got this tattoo. So I got this tattoo in like late October, November of 2020. And it's a giant symbol and metaphor for the relationship I have with my unconscious. My unconscious, like I said, presents me information, awarenesses, intuition, all these sorts of things so that I can not get blindsided by life. Anubis is the metaphor for my unconscious, and it presented me in like a dream, and it came and I sat with my unconscious and it said, hey, be aware of this is coming up, you need to do this. And it was so profound that I was like, I need to get this as a symbol and a reminder on my body that whenever I look down and I see Anubis, I can tap into that unconscious, I can tap into that inner world for me, which is really, really cool. And you guys can all do the exact same thing. So, seasons are changing. I'm aware of the things that are going on. And with the R.Y.S.E movement, we're very much rah-rah, hyper-masculine, go get shit done, success, love, fulfillment, purpose, meaning, all these sorts of things. Aim at your North Star. And however, I also talk about self-care. I also talk about, journaling, meditation, going to therapy, doing coaching, all these sorts of things so that it is a well-rounded foundation. Talking about Atlas with the world on his shoulders, that's the symbol of the R.Y.S.E movement. Men, we have the exact same thing. We get the world on our shoulders and we have to carry all of it. That's our self-care, that's our businesses, workplaces, finances, relationships with our fiancés and wives and all the rest of the things with our kids and like so on and so forth. We have the world on our shoulders. And self-care is a big part of that. Understanding your masculine energy and your feminine energies and your shadows and all these sorts of things, that's a part of it as well. Spiritual, psychological development, that is a massive part of it. And what I'm noticing as we're end of week 5 of 8 weeks to a new man, and it coincides with when this program finishes, that my new goal starts. However, it's not the goal that I thought was going to. It's a new chapter, it's a new transformation, it's a new challenge. So there's a softening happening to me that internally in my internal environment that I'm very much aware of. And I'm really excited for it. It means that I get to go back into introspection, return to the cave as it were, and do the inner work again. I feel like there's more for me to uncover, there's more for me to go inwards with. That means more meditation, more breath work, more journaling, contemplation, more time in nature, less time, training and all these sorts of things. And there's going to be a softness. There's going to be, probably some purging of emotions, purging of past traumas. There's going to be this softness and gentleness. And I very much feel like I've got this almost need and call to be around the feminine again and be held in a place where I can just be, ugly and cry if I need to and, scream and do whatever I absolutely need to do when it comes to healing. Because I feel like there's something that I'm about to uncover. There's something that I'm about to take the Band-Aid off and the wound's going to be there ready to show and I have to do something with it. I can't just sit back and go, oh no, I'm not looking at that. I'm going to fucking leave that by the wayside. It's very important that I go through with it and I look at all the pieces, look at all the darkness. I've got this light shining on me over here. There's a shadow right here. And all of us have the exact same thing. It doesn't matter how much shadow work you do, how much, fucking plant medicine ceremonies you do, meditation, hypnosis, all the rest of the modalities to be able to do shadow work, do unconscious work. Where there is light, there will always be a shadow. On this other arm with tattoos, because tattoos are very much a symbolism for my unconscious, my internal world and the things that I've learned, and so that I can, tell stories that have a picture associated with it to make it easier for myself, to make it easier for my kids, and to make it easier for everyone else that I work with. So this tattoo that I've got here, I've got Odin at the top of it, and then I've got Jormungandr, which is the world serpent, which is also the symbol of the Ouroboros. I'll put that over here. The symbol of the Ouroboros is a cycle of death and rebirth. It's the same archetype as the phoenix, burning itself, returning to ashes and emerging a brand new again. That is what Jormungandr is. Jormungandr is, like I said, the world serpent. It's also one of Loki's children. But then I've also got the giant ash tree, Yggdrasil. And Yggdrasil, I've got it so that it's going to be tattooed and it's going to be pretty symmetrical. One of my favorite Carl Jung quotes: "No tree, it is said, can reach to heaven if its roots don't reach to hell." Every time I go through this phase where I'm going through introspection, going through and, uprooting presuppositions, doing that internal work again, like putting in solid psychological development, spiritual development into my life and integrating it, you have to reach down into hell. You have to reach down into your shadow. You have to go as deep as you're willing to go voluntarily so that you don't get traumatized, so that you don't end up fucked and, with psychopathy and with, inner psychosis and all these sorts of things. Actually, I think I lent it out. I was going to talk about Carl Jung's The Red Book, where he basically made himself schizophrenic and pulled himself out through working with his unconscious, working with his inner anima, as he calls it, his soul, his love. And I feel like it's time for me to venture back into the Red Book and to start doing some, dream interpretation, some active imagination and some individuation, which is really, really fucking exciting for me. For you guys, that probably means fuck all. If you want to jump down a rabbit hole to understand a little bit more about subconscious and archetypes and all these sorts of things that I've spoken about briefly here, I recommend going over to Uber Boyo. He's an Irish lad and he's brilliant when it comes to explaining what's going on with Carl Jung and and Nietzsche as well, talking about all of the philosophies and all of the psychological development that happened from Carl Jung, which actually stemmed on from Nietzsche and a few other great people. So I think it's time for me to venture back into the Red Book. But this time, I've already studied the Red Book before, and I had some crazy dreams. That's actually where this dream came from, where I was talking to my unconscious, and I was talking to that, anima possession of mine that was in this weird little dance. Anyway, before I get too woo-woo and lose even more of you guys, I want to talk about the way that I'm going to be doing it. So on Anzac Day, 25th of April this year, I had a doctor's consult because I was noticing frustration. There was lots of anxiety inside of me, and I had so much energy inside with this anxiety and with everything that I was experiencing, and I needed to make a change. What I was doing with breath work and meditation, all the modalities that I already know, it wasn't doing enough. Finances were starting to get tight. My business wasn't doing the greatest. I was getting really frustrated because I applied for another job that still hasn't gone through. I applied for it almost 12 months ago now, and I've done all the processes necessary, but there's just a bunch of bureaucracy because I didn't disclose something that I actually forgot about because it happened in 2014, and here it is 2023. Anyway, I was struggling. I was doing a struggle in April. My mental health wasn't well, my anxiety was up, and everything was struggling. And then a mate of mine said, mate, you're so high strung, like you need a break. You need to give yourself a break. I said, I can't afford to, with the cost of living and everything that's going on, I need clients. I need to do stuff. And he goes, okay, so because you can't have time away and you've got to do the thing, why don't you do what I do? And so I asked him what he did. And he goes, yeah, I've been using medicinal marijuana for years. I was like, oh shit, is that a thing in Australia now? Because, I thought it was still illegal. I thought it was still on that, schedule of drugs. He goes, yeah, it's completely legal. It's a government backed program that you can go through. It's really good quality, and it's, all checks and balances. You get a card, you get, workplace letters to make sure that they can't discriminate you if you get caught with it in your system on a drug test and stuff like that. I was like, shit, that's interesting. So he gave me the information for it, and it's for a company called Alternate Leaf. And I signed up, I did all the things, had my consultation, and my doctor said, how are you functioning? And I was like, what are you talking about? Because the nurse that gave me the pre-consult, she asked me how I was doing. I said, yeah, I'm fine. And I said, I'm just a bit stressed. And she goes, what stress is to you is actually high range, high functioning anxiety. I was like, oh shit, that's interesting. So did the consult, doctor asked me if I was okay. And I said, yeah, sure. And he goes, mate, pretty much you can have almost anything that you want from our shop. Whatever you want to try, I will prescribe it for you. Obviously, I'll work with you to help you get your dosage right and stuff like that. But you need to get this anxiety under control. And, further on, where I am now, I'm actually starting the process to get diagnosed for ADHD, and I'll have a talk to the psychiatrist as well about possible diagnosis for autism as well. From what I've read, obviously it's anecdotal and it's books and podcasts and stuff that I've learned from, but apparently you can't have one without the other. Apparently it's very, very common to be autistic and have ADHD, which is interesting. But that's where it all stemmed from. So it all started from having this consult with the doctor on Anzac Day and starting the process of this little thing here, to be able to use medicinal flower, oil, and start looking after my mental health. Since that time that I started using, I use very, very small. I get really, really high, really, really fucking quickly. I always have. Anything that I've ever used, even back to when I was a teenager, first starting to smoke weed, 16, 17 sort of thing. I'd need 3 lots of bugger all, like a spun cigarette, and that would be me, and I'd be pretty cooked. And it's the same now. It's the same with alcohol. It's the same when I used to do steroids. I'm a hyper responder. The smallest amount gives me massive results. So I'm lucky. The initial stuff that I got from the doctor on prescription, I've still got an unopened case, and I'm only a third through the oil, and I think I'm halfway through the first lot of flour that I got. In that time it took about a week to get shipped to my house. So let's call it start of May. From the start of May until now, I have been the most creative, the least anxious. I've had the best sleep. I've had the best intimacy with Rach. I have further removed that mask of masculinity and, oh, look at me, I'm all tough and sort of things like that, because I still do it too. I'm human. I'm still learning. I'm still going through these things. Granted, I might be a few steps ahead of where you guys are, but just know that I'm exactly the same as you. I do my best to make sure that I'm meeting that ideal version of me in the future and embodying him now. However, there's only so much that I can do. And so one part of, using marijuana is I feel free. I feel like my mind isn't my worst enemy anymore. And hearing that out loud, honestly, it makes me emotional. Hearing that my mind is not out to get me, that I have space. and I've provided myself space to be able to have, use this medicine with reverence, to not use it as like recreation or anything like that. I'm using it with like ceremonial intention. So what I mean by ceremonial intention is every day when I feel like I need to, because I don't need to do it every day, but when I feel like I need to, I come home from work, and because, with THC laws in Australia, you can't have it in your system. If you're driving, you get caught and breathoed, then all of a sudden, you're basically losing your license there and then. It seems that that's changing in the future, but for where it is right now, you can't drive and have it in your system. And so like the way that I use it ceremonially, I come home from work after I finish my clients, I give the girls big kisses and cuddles and all the rest of the thing, greet Rach, big kiss and cuddle, check in with her, see how her day was. I make some dinner, because often I don't eat with the family because I do PT late into the night until 7:30, 8 o'clock sort of thing. And then the girls are in bed, Rach is chilling out, she's vegging out, and it's time for me. So I'll grab my phone, and I'm still obsessed with this band Sleep Token, the album Take Me Back to Eden, specifically the title track there, Take Me Back to Eden. That and Euclid, those two songs are just absolutely stunning, absolutely gorgeous. And so what I do is I turn my vape on, I go out the back, put the music on, I sit down on the chairs that are outside, kick my feet up on another one, and I look up at the stars. And I take some moments before this thing vibrates and it's ready in at temperature to use. I take some moments, I look up, and I think about how grateful I am. I think about how grateful I am to be alive, to be a father, to be a fiance, to have deep love and intimacy and connection with my fiance. The unconditional love from my children. This is what I think about every time I sit outside when I'm going to use. And I'm setting the foundation. I'm creating setting that is a perfect intentional place for me to do inner work. Because every night that I use this, I'm not using it for recreational purposes. I'm not using it to get high and watch comedies and stuff like that. I have done when I feel like I want to have a bit of a giggle and have some fun and stuff like that. But it's very intentional use. Because essentially this is for my mental health. So if I'm doing a practice for my mental health, I want to make sure that I'm practicing my mental health. I'm working on my mental health. I'm not doing it for shits and giggles. So then I'll have 3 big inhales and hold it and all the rest of the thing. Then I'll sit outside listening to that song, listening to the build up and the beautiful lyrics that Vessel's singing. And often I'll get tears in my eyes. Actually, quite often I end up crying quite profoundly, tears of gratitude. As I start to feel the high come on, I feel my body change, I get the tingles and, the delayed perception. And it really helps me ground into myself. It really helps me not be stuck in my head. I've spoken about on the podcast a bunch of times now that to be stuck in your head, you're better off dead. Get it onto a piece of paper. Work with a coach, work with a counselor, a therapist, or whatever you can do, and see your thoughts as they are. See them out loud. Because if they're stuck in your head and they're just rummaging around, going over and over and over, especially if you've got ADHD and you've got, really fucking busy internal voice, you need to get that out. And what I'm doing with this and this practice, it really, really helps me. I feel so creative. My output has increased exponentially, almost to the point where I feel like my productivity is up 200%. And I could have been using this for years. This initiative came in 2016 or 2017 or something like that. I've struggled with my mental health, with motivation, with procrastination, with, just feelings of unworthiness and anxiety and all these sorts of things because I set my North Star so high, because my straight and narrow path is so long and I have so much work to do. It gets overwhelming at times. And that's where the thoughts start going and my mental health deteriorates and I end up burning out and, not following through, and I end up feeling pretty crushed because of it. And then the negative self-talk comes in. Negative self-talk comes in and it says, see, you're a failure, you're a fraud. That imposter syndrome comes in and it starts making me question why I do what I do. I know why I do what I do, but that shadow saboteur victim voice, it wants me to stay where I'm comfortable. It doesn't want me to reach out. It wants me to play Xbox every day. It wants me to, just live a comfortable life. But in my heart of hearts, I can't do that. Like, I have to aim towards a higher purpose and meaning. I have to help have impact and meaning inside of the world and change this voice that we have around men's mental health and, you know, seeking wellness and, you know, relationships not fragmenting anymore and the dynamics between men and women. Like, this is my mission. I have to do this. I have to be able to help men make their lives great, make their lives purposeful, meaningful, fulfilling. And so using this is an amazing tool. And coming up to what I'm coming up with, this cycle change and season change, I don't know where it's going to go. I know that this ceremony and meditation and everything else that I do with this as a tool is going to help me. It's going to be the big thing that aids me through this transition. And I'm so here for it. I don't know what the content's going to be like coming out from the R.Y.S.E movement. I've got a feeling that it's going to be more heart-centered, more talking about emotions, talking about, you know, ways to overcome things. As I'm going through that work, I want to share it with you guys because my epiphanies and integrations and lessons are lessons for you guys as well. Maybe that something that I bring up and, you know, going back to transparency, authenticity, and vulnerability, coming back to those three, if I have it inside of me, there's a chance that one of you guys out there has it as well. And so if I can provide, you know, a little, hey, pay attention to this, hey, this is something that I noticed and this is what I did about it, maybe you've got this too, then I can help you as well. The big thing with the R.Y.S.E movement is its service in all areas of life. Raise your standards everywhere. For me, it's for service. And a lot of the time it comes down to, I'm worried about the world that my children are growing up into. And I need your guys' help to transform it and to be men of high standards so that all of our children can have a world that they can be proud of, where they can have all of the potential that it's inside of them, and it's all completely unlimited, like it is in you and I, so that they can have and experience anything that they want to. And like with my massive goal for my whole life is to be 110 years old and see 5 generations below me. Like, that's the world that I want to bring into. I want to bring that into existence, but I can't do it alone. I need all of your guys' help. That's what this movement's all about. The R.Y.S.E movement is all of us together, united. Community, intimacy, connection, communication. So I'm very grateful that you're here along with me for this journey. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what we're going to do, but I know that we're going to do our best as we raise your standards everywhere alongside each other. Thank you for being here, men. Much love, take care. And I'm going to go outside and sit in ceremony. Thanks, guys. Thank you for being with me today. Thank you for subscribing and leaving a review. It really helps us out. Until next time, take care and much love.